All right, and welcome back to Saturday Drop number 2. And then we're going to have more drops tomorrow. Thank you, Derek Vance from the Push to Pass podcast, coming on talking IndyCar with us. Of course, IndyCar and NASCAR are both at the same track this weekend out in Phoenix. I loved it when they did that a couple of years ago here in Indianapolis, which is where I'm located, high atop the Balance Studios in the west suburbs of Indianapolis. Derek Vance jumped on and we broke down, just a recap of St. Pete last week and, of course, what's going on today. And then right now we're getting ready to go into our NFL segment. Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles and SI.com, and our official NFL contributor. Ed, how are you doing, sir? Kind of a rainy weekend. We're merging from winter to spring, the rain, April showers, not well, March showers bring April flowers, all that good stuff. But how is you?
I'm fighting that same rainy battle you are. It's been raining here most of the week and just dreary. I mean, not a lot of rain, drizzling here and there, but not a lot of sunshine. So I'm missing my vitamin D.
Vitamin, I'm definitely missing my vitamin D.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I think I know there are some people who like it. It really affects their mood, their ability to function at work. I don't think I'm that bad, but I'll tell you what. If we have another week like this, I might fall into one of those people that like weather depression or whatever they call it. I don't know. I might.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Well,
get in your car and drive south for a few hours until you hit the
there,
sunshine. I guess that's
there you
how you
go.
remedy that.
Well, yeah, a few hours, yeah. Seems like
Yeah.
everything to the south is getting clobbered too. So, well, I wanted to start things off here with just remembering a legend, a goat, if you will, about Lou Holtz. Obviously, very well known for his time and tenure at Notre Dame. Brought all the Notre Dame stuff that we know, the sign tapping. We know, he's got a statue. He is the epitome of a coach, a college coach, even though he spent 10 years there, which by all that's a lot, especially in these days. But Lou Holtz passed away. He's 89 years old. I mean, what a great man he was. What a great motivator he was. I mean, he had a brief cup of coffee with the Jets, and he quit. And he said, the good Lord did not make Lou Holtz to coach pro football. So, so millions are remembering the life and legacy of Lou Holtz this week. Obviously the former Notre Dame coach, and he was a beloved Catholic who died after a brief time in hospice. So, thoughts, memories, anything that you want to bring to the conversation about Lou Holtz?
Yeah, just I remember him like probably a lot of people just when he was the coach of Notre Dame, and that was a long time ago. That was back in like 1988. So
Well, in 1988 is when he won the championship.
right, right, and then he
I was
had
a
that.
freshman in college that year.
Yeah, let's see. I'd have to think where I was. I had just gotten out of college, but yeah, it's kind of how I remember him is taking Notre Dame, and I love Notre Dame. I always had wanted to go to Notre Dame back in the when I was in high school. I thought that'd be a place I'd like to go to school. Never worked out that way, but Lou Holtz was Notre Dame, and it's hard to find anyone that would say a bad thing about him. I've never met him. I've covered a lot of sporting events in my time, but Lou Holtz was never someone I had a chance to meet or talk to or get to know a little bit. So I just kind of remember, that Notre Dame run and just what other people were saying about him after he passed. And 89 years old, lived a great life. Hard to argue with that. So it's a shame everybody's time comes to an end, but he certainly left a mark here while he was here in his 89 years.
And the other connection that I mentioned to Notre Dame, obviously Notre Dame is a Catholic college, and he's a very renowned devout Catholic, and he gave us one of the most famous quotes of all time. One of a rival chaplain argued that God doesn't care who wins the football games. But then Lou Holtz, when he was at Notre Dame, said God doesn't care who wins the football game tomorrow, but his mother does. But so there's
Yeah.
there's things like that, but he long before he ever coached Notre Dame, Lou Holtz was uh, put into an organization, former Sisters of Notre Dame, and attending a great school in East Liverpool, Ohio. He was credited with his time with the nuns, so he had a lot of growth growing up with the nuns, and he wanted to play football, not coaching. He wanted, but as he mentioned one time, he said God answered my prayer in a different way. So Lou Holtz was certainly one of the greatest and legends of all time, and he's been there, done that, done it all, and there's really nothing that you can't say. There's very few people in this world, and myself included in this, that you can't find something negative about that person. You can find a lot negative about me. I didn't mean to say you can't find anything negative about me. But Lou Holtz was one of those. If you try, you might find something. But for the most part, I mean, well, I'll apologize if I'm messing this up. But his rules were do good to others, learn on behavior. So there was like 3 rules that he had. So yeah, Lou Holtz, one of the greatest of all times, passes away at 89. As we've said on this show, oftentimes with you and I, Ed, Father Time stops for no one. But I guarantee you, he has no problem getting into the pearly gates. So.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he impacted a lot of people's lives, and you just have to see all the testaments and people that were close to Lou or played for Lou, and what they have to say about him. I mean, he certainly made his mark, like I said, and yeah, I think St. Peter will swing those gates open for him.
Wide open.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We just finished up the combine here in Indianapolis. A lot of good times, and I thought it was Fernando Mendoza. He didn't really do anything there, but he did make an appearance at the combine. It was during one of the fan days, and you would have thought that the Indianapolis Colts had a home game going on when he came out. So it was always fun. Good thing is the combine, there's been discussions about him moving out to LA, but right now they're here till 2028. Now we talk about what were the takeaways from the combine. As we know, the combine is a massive, intensive job interview for people who want to play in the NFL. You have to get invited there. So the best of the best are there. And so you have to say, please your case, why pick me? Why pick me? So let's talk about the Eagles notebook, if you will, from the combine. Now we start getting ready for draft tomorrow. And tomorrow's draft, tomorrow's drops, we're going to be talking with Adam Jividan, our college football guru, and me and him have sit down. And you are. I will extend right now. You are the welcome to join. But we have got a spreadsheet open where we're going to break down the running backs, the quarterbacks, all the positions groupings tomorrow. So if you want to join us, text me offline, buddy, and we'll get you on. But we're going to be doing that tomorrow. But let's talk about a lot that's going on in the NFL. I want to just kind of push the broom across the NFL, and no topic off limits, if you will. But let's start with the Eagles. Eagles are getting ready for the draft. What do you think are some of the takeaways, or what do you think, as we've mentioned oftentimes, the Eagles are playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers? What game is the Eagles playing now to prepare for the draft?
Yeah, I thought Howie would take a big swing. He talked earlier before the combine that, it's a tough place to make a splash with the way their salary cap is. And I thought, maybe they were in play for Max Crosby. I had heard whispers that they might trade Jalen Carter or look to trade Jalen Carter, the Eagles' young, still 24-year-old defensive tackle who is probably going to break the bank here on his next contract. The Eagles can pick up his team option in May, which will pay him about $27 million for 2027. But they want to get a long-term deal done. But I thought, maybe there's a chance they trade him for someone like Max Crosby. And that would certainly have been a big splash to trade someone like Carter from Crosby, who's 29 years old. But, the Ravens kind of met the asking price for what the Raiders were looking for. They gave up 2 number 1 picks. And now the Raiders are on the clock at number 1 and number 14. So, they'll get Mendoza at 1, and then we'll see who they take at 14. And that is dependent on the combine and who they came out of there really liking. I know they could use help in a lot of places. And it's the same with the Eagles. They're probably going to go offensive line and tight end. I'm not sure in what position. I know Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon has been mentioned to the Eagles. I'm not sure he gets to 23. Someone else might grab him before that. But, I think the Eagles are going to go offense. But the combine is a place to get to know the prospect. And it's also a place for, GMs to talk to one another because they're all in Indianapolis and they can all have, lunch together, dinner together, whatever they want.
Down in St. Elmo's.
Yeah, St. Elmo's. Yeah, try some of that cocktail sauce. But
that's great, isn't it?
you got to dip your toe into that first. You can't just take
sir.
a big swipe of that cocktail sauce, so you'll blow your nasal passages out. But the point is, there was a lot of dealings. I'm sure a lot of deals that were discussed and contract talk during the week or so of the combine, and now free agency starts on Monday with the legal tampering period. And I think we might even see some deals this weekend. Obviously, the Crosby trade to the Ravens was huge. 2 number ones. Baltimore doesn't have a number 1 pick next year. And the Colts in the same boat. They traded for Sauce Gardner and gave up 2 number ones. So they're not picking in the first round this year or next year. And, as a fan, that kind of sucks, to have to sit there. You study these prospects, you look at it, and knowing that you're not going to be on the clock until sometime in the second round unless you make a trade. So you better hope that you get what you want when you trade away that kind of value. And, Crosby certainly with 70 career sacks is going to help that Ravens team for sure. I'm glad he's not in the NFC for the Eagles' sake because, I know Dallas was in on him a little bit, but they didn't want to give up that asking price. So they're going to move on. I think Trey Hendrickson is still out there in free agency, the Bengals guy. I think the Cowboys make some sense for him, maybe even the Eagles, but, he's going to command a lot of money too. So, we'll see. Colts are interesting though, Tom. We'll see what they do without, as much draft collateral or, I don't know what their salary cap situation's like, but, they're going to have to find some answers in the draft. They're going to have to get a deal done probably with Daniel Jones. They put that transition tag on him. But they're going to have a hard time finding a quarterback unless you take one in the second round with their first pick. Maybe Ty Simpson, he had a pretty good combine, or, some of these other guys that did well in the combine too. I like Drew Aller from Penn State. I thought he had a pretty good combine, even though he couldn't do all the drills because he's still recovering from an ankle injury, but he certainly has a live arm and someone that could go on the second day of the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Max Crosby is a big news, but is it really surprising? And how do we know already that the Raiders are going to take Mendoza? Isn't it supposed to be secret envelope? Yeah, I'm just kidding. I mean, you could play every devil's advocate scenario and never come up with one where it makes sense for them not to take Mendoza. And so I tell you what, you don't want to say luck. He's very well skilled, but man, he has just been blessed with one great opportunity after another, and this is a great opportunity for him to be a franchise quarterback there in the Raiders organization. You mentioned the Colts, obviously my team, and Daniel Jones. That's the best they could have done. And you don't see teams deal out. You see franchise tags, which is different than transactional tags. So with the transactional tags means he's still able to basically go into free agency. And teams can go and make a bid with him, like he's on eBay or something. But per the contract, per the tag, whatever team offers him a bid, any bid or whatever, the Colts get to match or exceed that bid. So it's their intention to keep Daniel Jones, but it's also their intention, okay, let's see what happens out there. We're not going to be able to keep Pierce. We're not going to be able to put that transactional tag on Pierce. There's a dual conversation there. There are some that say, okay, Pierce has had some bright moments, but is he worth, in dollar value, is he worth that transactional tag? So if you have to pick between the two, the Colts decide to go with Daniel Jones. And I, even though at the back half of the season we were dealing with injuries again, I like Daniel Jones and see what happens there. Let's move on back over to the Eagles there. The Eagles in the A.J. Brown trade. I mean, it really does come down to New England. Don't you think that would be where he ends up at?
Yeah, well, I thought, the Ravens were in play, but now they just gave up 2 picks for Crosby, so that crosses them off the list. The Patriots make a lot of sense. Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown worked together in Tennessee when the Titans drafted A.J. Brown in the second round, and Vrabel was the coach then, and the two got to know each other. Vrabel's come out and said, he's like a son to him. You have a 22-year-old quarterback, you would come in the building into a passing style offense, which is what AJ, I think, really wants. The Eagles are a run first offense, and that doesn't help his case to try to make a Hall of Fame run here, which I think he can. If he can keep putting together 1,000-yard seasons, which he's had 5 of them since he's been here in Philly. So, or 4 of them, I should say. This would be his 5th year, but I think the Patriots are going to make a strong push for Alec Pierce. I think,
that'd be nice.
Yeah. I think they want, and it depends if they overpay for him, which, let's face it, when free agency starts, everybody's getting overpaid.
Although no Colts fan wants to see any Colt go to the Patriots, but that's just old love, right?
Yeah, right.
Old school.
We're
in the new school now.
yeah, that's an old grudge against those Patriots. But I think Pierce would make sense in that offense. And then if they do, bring him on, then what does that do for AJ? I mean, the Eagles want some they want to get some finality to this. They want to kind of be able to build their team knowing if AJ is going to come back or not. And so I'm not sure this goes, it might go up to the draft. Maybe he gets traded on draft night. Maybe, I've heard speculation where the Eagles might attach him in a trade to try to move up in the first round. If there's someone hanging there that they really want, maybe they throw him into that deal and swap their pick with whoever they're trading up for. So I don't expect it to go much past the draft, maybe not even much past free agency. I've heard the Chargers could be in play now, to pair him with Justin Herbert. The Chargers are looking to get over that hump in the playoffs. They haven't been able to get a win in the playoffs for Justin Herbert. So, A.J. Brown, would he put them over the top? I think he would give them a good shot to at least win a game in the playoffs. But, I think we could see some movement on the A.J. Brown front this weekend or early next week. He could get dealt, or the Eagles might pull the carpet out and say, listen, we're not trading him. We're going to move forward, and this is how we're going to build our team. We know our cap situation with A.J. on it. So, I think things still have to kind of reveal themselves with A.J. Brown. But my suspicion is they're going to, and I've gone back and forth on this. Let me tell you, I think they're going to trade him, but it might not be till after June 1st when they can save money on the salary cap. If they traded him now, they take a big salary cap hit and a lot of dead money on that deal. So after June 1st, the dead money is more like $20 million versus $43 million. The savings in the cap, if you traded him now, it's still a $23 million hit on your cap. Whereas after June 1st, I think you're saving $7 million on the cap. So that makes more sense. Now you can make a deal and then designate it to be post June 1st to kind of get that savings. But again, I really think they're going to trade. They're going to find a way, I think, to trade him. I really think that. We'll see.
All right, we're talking with Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, and our NSI.com, our official NFL contributor. We were running about a 5-minute late start, so we got about 10 more minutes. You good with that, sir?
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I just want to play, ring around the rosy with the free agency and just kind of, randomly throw darts at a team with no particular order here. But we will start with the Buffalo Bills. We're talking about free agency. They need a pass rusher. They need an outside linebacker. That their need changed after the Bills got DJ Moore. What free agency do you think they most likely land on and make a move for? A lot of people are saying defensive tackle Dequan Jones. What do you expect to happen here with the Bills? Add more depth and on inexpensive contracts again. Even though we have more money to spend on the salary cap, you still got to move stuff around. So that's something that the team's got to think about when they go out there in the free agency world, if they even decide to do that. Buffalo Bills, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, they already brought in their receiver, DJ Moore. They gave up a lot to get DJ Moore from the Bears. So you have to think that, they made that move in the trade market, and now they're probably going to address a defense. They need edge defenders or edge rushers. They could be in play for the Eagles. Jalen Phillips, he's a free agent. I'm not sure the Eagles are going to be able to re-sign him after trading for him at the deadline. Had a great half a year here with the Eagles. He stayed healthy. But I think the Eagles will have a walkaway number for him. I'm thinking it might be around 20 to 22 million a year, but I think someone's going to blow that away. Teams with money. And maybe the Bills are one. Maybe they try to make a play for a guy like Jalen Phillips, somebody to rush the passer. They have a free agent. I think Espinada or Epinesa, I think his name is. Epinesa from Iowa.
Empanada.
Yeah.
Isn't that a Mexican dish?
Because they're losing guys. So, but again, their cap flexibility, they're going to have to do some restructuring with Josh Allen probably, and some of the other guys, Ed Oliver, D tackle. They're losing their center, they're losing a guard, so that could be settled in the draft. But I think in free agency, they're going to try to address the defensive line with an emphasis on trying to find a pass rusher.
All right, let's spin the wheel. It lands on the Miami Dolphins. They need an edge rusher. Obviously, the Dolphins also need a quarterback. They have Quinn Ewers, they have Tua, but until they decide to release or trade Tua, they need that edge rusher. And you think that they most likely like to make a move with Zach Wilson, the former number 2 pick, and signed 1-year deal with the Dolphins last offseason, but was leapfrogged by Ewers when Tua was benched for 3 games. I don't know what do we expect to happen here. I think the Dolphins finally need to make that decision, just like the Colts have made the decision to move on from Anthony Richardson. The Dolphins need to move on from Tua. Over the past month, Miami has been non-committal about their former franchise quarterback. So you got to think they're going to move on. There's been scenarios where Tua would end up here with the Colts. I can't see him being better than Daniel Jones. So, but that said, I don't want to get in that conversation about Tua coming to the Colts. But that said, the Dolphins need to move on from Tua, and they need to figure something out.
Yeah, and they don't have a lot of money to do it. I mean, I think they're only $5 million under the cap. So, you're looking at a guy maybe like Malik Willis, who's one of the top free agent quarterbacks on the market right now, probably overall even of all the positions. He's available, but he's going to cost a lot of money. But there's a connection there with Jeff Hafley, their new coach in Miami, having come from Green Bay, familiarity with Malik Willis. But you got to figure out a way to afford him. And Tua, they gave him an extension, so he's still going to count against your cap in some form if you get rid of him, whether you cut him or trade him. So they're kind of up against it here in terms of being able to spend money right now. But, if they can free up some, then, certainly they have needs of, in a lot of areas, edge rusher, again, it's a premium position. They could use one of those. A cornerback, they need some offensive line help. I mean, to me, the Dolphins, they're still a little way away from contending. In an AFC East, it's pretty strong with the Bills and the Patriots having, good seasons. And, who knows about the Jets? They're the Jets. So, but the Dolphins, to me, don't have a lot of money and they have a lot of needs. And that's not that does not add up well for them.
All right, we're spinning the wheel again. We land at the Dallas Cowboys. They need help on the defense. Pick any spot on the defensive tackle. They need help. Their pass rusher, linebacker, quarterback, and safety. It could be multiple pass rushers, linebackers, and Jerry Jones has already says, I've got a blank check for you. Let's make it happen. This is going to be, we're gonna max out everything, and this is going to be the year. Jerry Jones's words. He said that before. I think they mostly make a move on Kenneth Murray Jr. He led the Cowboys in tackles in 2025, started 16 to 17 games, but didn't make it enough impact plays too often, and he was out of that position. What happens? I don't know. Maybe they signed one marquee free agent. That way, Jerry Jones is keeping his political campaign alive of what he said he was going to do. But we'll see what could happen here. But the Dallas Cowboys, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, let's see what they've done already. They've put the franchise tag on the receiver, George Pickens. They re-signed Javonte Williams. I know there's been some talk linking the running back from Seattle, Kenneth Walker, to Dallas, but I don't see them going that direction after re-signing Javonte Williams. They have a kicker issue. They're trying to get a deal done with the best kicker in football, Braden Aubrey. We'll see if that gets done. And to top it all off, they're another team that doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend. Now they're redoing Dak Prescott's deal and CeeDee Lamb's deal and some others to kind of get a little bit further under the cap to maybe make a big splash. And guys to keep an eye on, I think, are three former Eagles. And I think these guys will be popular with a lot of teams, and that's Nakobe Dean, the linebacker. They need linebacker help in Dallas. Reed Blankenship, a safety. They could use some safety help. And then, of course, Jalen Phillips, who is going to be available to everybody pretty soon here, and they can make a big swing on him as a pass rusher, or they could go the Trey Hendricks route, depending on how much he's going to cost. I think he'll be a little more expensive, but I think it'll be maybe a year contract or 2 years. Whereas I think Phillips is going to cost you 3 or 4 years to get him signed. But I think they're three names to watch, and they're going to be three names that a lot of teams are going to keep an eye on: is Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, and Jalen Phillips. Two of those three guys helped win a Super Bowl with the Eagles. They've been to 2 Super Bowls, so they have experience. And I think they're going to be popular targets in free agent for a lot of teams, including the Cowboys.
And we spin the wheel. We got probably 1 or 2 more teams, but we land on the Chicago Bears. They need work in the trenches. The answer was supposed to focus on top tier pass rusher, if you will, whether it be via free agency, such as Tyler Hendrickson, Max Crosby. He's out of the picture now. But then we had that surprise retirement of the center Drew Dahlman. I know you and I talked about that offline, and that was just kind of a surprise move. So now the Bears have a major need on the offensive line, also needing to figure out their plans on the left tackle with Ozzie Tripolo, who out of the most 2025 season, because he was out. I'm sorry, because he got a ruptured tendon. So maybe they make a move to Jalen Brisker. Ryan Poles, I believe his name, the general manager of the Bears, said they'd like to keep the safety, Kevin Byard III. A potential move that likely means Brisker would test for free agency at this moment. Don't know what they'll do here, but they're going to have to sign a veteran center. That now has to be their new focus after Dahlman's retirement, because that's a huge blow to the Bears' offensive line. And the Bears had a great season, so we'll see. The
Bears, they made a trade. I don't know if you saw, but they traded for a center. They traded for Garrett Bradbury from the Patriots.
Okay, no, I did not see that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it happened overnight. I think it was late last night. They made a deal. They sent a 5th-round pick in 2027's draft to New England to get Garrett Bradbury, kind of a veteran center. The Bears obviously think he can do some things Dahlman did, or they wouldn't have traded for him. So they have kind of that center replacement. And the draft, there's a lot of good centers in the draft had they gone that direction. And I think, when you talk about their safety group, Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker being free agents, the draft has got some really good safety prospects in it too. So, you might see the Bears just kind of wait it out at, one of those positions or especially safety, since they have their center. But you might find that answer come, in the draft with somebody that they pick early to kind of step in and fill that need, or they could go on the cheap. I think Brisker is going to cost money. I think Byard is going to cost money. There could be some second-level free agents at safety, like a Blankenship, maybe for $10 million a year. Maybe they bring him in as a little bit of a cheaper move than Brisker or Byard's going to command. But they could use help there, and I think even at tackle, Ozzie Tripolo, their rookie last year from Boston College, had a great season, but he tore ligaments in his knee in the playoffs, and I don't think he's going to be coming back anytime soon. So you need to address the offensive line at some point and find a right tackle somewhere, whether that's in free agency or the draft, to kind of take Tripolo's place on that line. So they have needs. Every team has them, but the Bears satisfied one of them by getting that center last night from the Patriots.
All right, let's go to our final team of the day. Let's fly out to LA. Let's get off the plane. Let's go over to the Rams organization. They need a cornerback. historically, the Rams have not prioritized the position with splash moves and free agency. But even after trading for McDuffie earlier in the week, which is pretty huge, especially if you're a Chiefs fan, the group is still biggest need is the cornerback situation. So I mean, you got to think that Otwell maybe. Devontae Adams, maybe. They need to. I mean, what do we think happens here? I know you would think they need to prioritize their extension eligible players over splashy free agent signings. The Rams had a very strong 2023 draft class, which means outside linebacker Brian Young, defensive end Kobe Turner, and Steve Alva are still extension eligible through the Rams. Will enter free agency in the cap space. So we got to see what they're going to do there. But what do you think about the Rams?
Yeah, you're right. That even though they got McDuffie and they gave up a lot, including their first pick in the draft, they don't really seem to ever care about those first round picks, the Rams, and they do just fine. So, but they could use some depth there. And again, I think this draft coming up is a place maybe in the second round would be kind of a sweet spot for them to pick a cornerback. It's a pretty deep class at that spot. But then you'd be throwing a rookie out there on a team that has a legitimate chance to contend for a Super Bowl. So, we'll see where they go there. Maybe, I don't know what's available in the free agent market at cornerback. I don't think it's a really deep class of free agents at that spot. And then receiver, they could use kind of a third receiver behind Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, who's getting up there. So that's a place they could go. And then the offensive line, you're always looking for offensive line help, no matter who you are. But they could use kind of a swing tackle to kind of maybe develop and make him a starter next year, or in 27. So linebacker maybe might be a spot too. So these are things to keep an eye on. I'm not sure how deep it is at linebacker in the draft, so maybe that comes in free agency. But cornerback, yeah, for sure. Even after getting McDuffie, it's a passing league, right? So you're going to need corners to kind of contend, to compete against the pass, and they could certainly use another one.
Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles and SI.com. We wrap up another exciting drop with you. We always appreciate you jumping on. I'll contact you offline if you want to jump on tomorrow with Adam and I. We'll definitely regroup after the draft and go through the scorecard of the draft. As we talked about offline, but Ryan Kelly, he retired. It was his time to retire. I know 2 years ago he went over to the Vikings. Obviously, a great center that we had here, I should say, not maybe as good as Jeff Saturday was in his heyday, but nonetheless, I wore his jersey for years. So I've been putting off getting a new jersey, so it's time to do that. And I think it's going to have to be Tyler Warren. I can't think of another guy that I want wearing on my back than Tyler Warren right now. So
yeah, he'd be a good one to get. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be there a while anyway.
I can't retire a jersey till the player retires or is hurt or whatever. No, so it is what it is. I've been wearing Ryan Kelly off books, if you will, off season. He hasn't played with us, but still, nonetheless,
he'll always be a Colt. Yeah, he's a four-time Pro Bowler in Colts history. Played 9 years?
I mean, 9 years.
First round pick back in the day. I mean, yeah, he's probably going to be in your Hall of Fame, the Colts Hall of Fame, I would imagine.
I have no doubt. Ed Kratz, we always appreciate you joining us. I hope you have a good weekend. Where can people find your work and masterpieces, sir?
Yeah, on the X platform at KRACZE is where I put all the links and stuff, and it's going to be a busy week, I think, with all this free agency that's going to happen. I'm not sure how busy the Eagles will be because of their salary cap. They're trying to re-sign some of their own players like Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. Then you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean coming up next year. So I think if the Eagles are busy, it'll be one-year deals. We'll see how busy the Colts are without that first-round pick. Kind of puts them behind the eight ball a little. We'll see what they're going to do in free agency, but it's going to be busy.
All right, Ed, we appreciate it. You have a good weekend, and we'll catch up with you very soon, sir.
All right. Appreciate it, Tom. See ya.
Uh-huh.